again, friends. I do love our time together, and I'm happy to tell you more stories. Once again, we have a request. I love requests. To be fair to everyone, I plan to read one of the two requests this time and the other request next time. I am so excited! The cameraman is not. So, without any further projectile stuffed weapons, I will now read to you The Golden Key. One winter, when the snow was very deep, a poor boy had to go outside and gather wood on a sled. After he had finally collected enough wood and had to pile it onto his sled, he decided not to go home right away because he was so frozen. Aw, poor kid. He thought he would instead make a fire to warm himself up a bit. So he began scraping the snow away, and as he cleared the ground, he discovered a small golden key. Where there's a key, he knew there must also be a lock. So he dug further into the ground and found a little iron casket. If only the key will fit, he thought. There are bound to be precious things in the casket. He searched, but he could not find a keyhole. Then, finally, he noticed one, but it was so small that he could barely see it. He tried the key, and fortunately, it fit. So he began turning it, and now we must wait until he unlocks the casket completely and lifts the cover. That's that's when we'll learn what wonderful things he found. That that's it. That's the end of the story. That is the whole story. What do I do now? I Look, it's a sign from the cameraman. Apparently, the treasure in the casket is Artie finally reading Rapunzel. Well, I suppose it had to happen eventually. After all the build-up, I hope it's a really good story. Once upon a time. It's a once upon a time story. Woot! There was a husband and wife who, for some time, had been wishing in vain for a child. I wonder how they feel about hedgehogs. Finally, the wife had a sign of hope that their wish would be fulfilled. That's called morning sickness. Now, in the back of their house, the couple had a small window that overlooked a splendid garden filled with the most beautiful flowers and herbs. The garden, however, was surrounded by a high wall, and nobody dared to enter it because it belonged to a sorceress who was very powerful and feared by all. One day, when the wife was standing at the window and looking into the garden, she noticed a bed of the finest Rapunzel lettuce. Wait, Rapunzel is a lettuce? Rapunzel is a lettuce? Look, Google confirms it. She was named Lettuce. That poor child. At least Cinderella was just a mean nickname. No one actually named her that. Does Eugene Fitzherbert know he's dating a woman named Lettuce? The lettuce looked so fresh and green that her mouth watered, and she had a great craving to eat some. Day by day, this craving increased, and since she knew she could not get any, she began to waste away and look pale and miserable. Oh, cravings can be the worst. When the editor was pregnant with her second child, the only thing she could eat was really expensive rainbow rolls. Everything else just made her sick. Babies are really mean. Her husband became alarmed and asked, "What's wrong with you, dear wife?" "Ah," she responded, "I shall certainly die if I don't get any of that Rapunzel from the garden behind our house." Her husband, who loved her, thought, "Before I let my wife die, I'll do anything I must to make sure she gets some Rapunzel." Oh, so I'm guessing he went next door and asked like a good person. The next day at dusk, he climbed over the So much for the good person. He climbed over the wall of the sorceress's garden, hastily grabbed a handful of Rapunzel, and brought them to his wife. So he just steals the lettuce. Ha! How is this a better idea than just knocking on your neighbor's door and saying, "Hi, my wife is pregnant, and I was hoping I could buy some of your lettuce because she's craving it"? Immediately she made them into a salad and ate it with great zest. But the Rapunzel tasted so good to her, so very good, that her desire for them was 3 times greater by the next day. If she was to have any peace, her husband knew he had to climb into the garden once more, or, knock at the door and ask. Surely that's less scary than stealing from a sorceress. Seriously, man. So, at dusk, he scaled the wall again, and just as he landed on the other side, he was given a tremendous scare, for he stood face to face with the sorceress. Dun, dun, dun! How dare you climb into my garden and steal my Rapunzel like a thief? She said with an angry look. You'll pay for this. I agree with her. The father is absolutely in the wrong here. Oh, he cried, please let mercy prevail over justice. I did this only because I was in a great predicament. My wife noticed your Rapunzel from our window, and she developed such a craving for it that she would have died if I hadn't brought her some to eat. Upon hearing that, the anger of the sorceress subsided, and she said to him, if it is truly as you say, then I shall permit you to take as many Rapunzel as you like. See, she's completely reasonable. Don't understand what this guy's problem was. But only under one condition. When your wife gives birth, I must have the child. Or maybe not. You needn't fear about the child's well-being, for I shall take care of it like a mother. In his fear, the man agreed to everything, and when his wife had the baby, the sorceress appeared at once. She gave the child the name Rapunzel and took her away. Yep, she named the baby Lettuce. Lettuce grew to be the most beautiful child under the sun. Ha! I was so distracted by the name Lettuce, I missed that her parents just exited stage left. Well, goodbye, Mom and Dad. It was nice knowing you. But when she was 12 years old, the sorceress locked her in a tower that was in the forest. It had neither a door nor stairs, only a little window high above. Whenever the sorceress wanted to get in, she would stand below and call out, Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair for me. That's the whole rhyme? Could have swore there was more. Lettuce's hair was long and radiant, as fine as spun gold. Every time she heard the voice of the sorceress, she unpinned her braids and wound them around a hook on the window. Then she let her hair drop 20 yards, and the sorceress would climb up on it. That's a lot of hair. A few years later, a king's son happened to be riding through the forest and, passing by the tower, suddenly he heard a sound so lovely that he had to stop and listen. I wonder if it was Spike's bagpipes. It was Lettuce, who passed the time in her solitude by letting her sweet voice resound in the forest, while she went slowly insane from forced isolation. The prince wanted to climb up to her, and he looked for a door, but he could not find one. That's because nobody knocks in these stories, and the sorceress probably knows this. So he rode home. Quitter. However, the song had touched his heart so deeply that he rode out into the forest every day and listened. What? Why didn't he bring a ladder? One time, as he was standing behind a tree, he saw the sorceress approach and heard her call out, Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair. Then Lettuce let down her braids, and the sorcerer climbed up to her. If that's the ladder one needs to get up there, I'm going to try my luck, the prince declared. Or you could just bring a ladder. The next day, as it began to get dark, he went to the tower and called out, Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair. What, because it's dark it disguises his voice? All at once, the hair dropped down, and she didn't say anything like, oh, Grandma, what a deep voice you have. Seriously, she is clearly already losing it. Or, I guess, alternately, the prince has a really girly voice. And the prince climbed up. When he entered the tower, Rapunzel was at first terribly afraid, for she had never laid eyes on a man before. So she pushed him out the window. No, too much to hope for? Carry on, story. However, the prince began to talk to her in a friendly way, and he told her that her song had touched his heart so deeply that he had not been able to rest until he had seen her. Well, you've seen her. Have a nice day. Lettuce then lost her fear, and when he asked her whether she would have him for her husband, you just met. I mean, honestly. Should I take comfort in that she is at least alive and above the age of 10? And she saw that he was young and handsome. She thought, he'll certainly love me better than old Mother Gothel. So she said yes, and placed her hand in his. I want to go with you very much, she said, but I don't know how I can get down. I don't know either, unless he, I don't know, brought a ladder. Every time you come, you must bring a skein of silk with you, and I'll weave it into a ladder. When it's finished, then I'll climb down, and you can take me away on your horse. That that seems like a terrible plan. They agreed that until he would come to her every evening, for the old woman came during the day. Meanwhile, the sorcerer did not notice anything until one day Lettuce blurted out, Mother Gothel, how is it that you're so much heavier than the prince? Ooh, rude. When I pull him up, he's here in a second. Oh, Lettuce. Poor, poor, stupid Lettuce. Ah, you godless child! Exclaimed the sorcerer. What's this I hear? I thought I had made sure you had no contact with the outside world, but you've deceived me. Or she named her squirrel friend Prince because she's lost her mind with loneliness. I mean, solitary confinement is a form of torture. In her fury, she seized Lettuce's beautiful hair, wrapped it around her left hand several times, grabbed a pair of scissors with her right hand, and snip, snap, the hair was cut off. First of all, harsh. Second, that is a lot of hair to just snip, snap off like that. And the beautiful braids lay on the ground. Then the cruel sorceress took Lettuce to a desolate land where she had to live in great misery and grief. Really harsh. It just seems like a bit of an overreaction, really. Couldn't you, hug it out? On the same day that she banished Lettuce, the sorceress fastened the braid she had cut off to the hook on the window, and that evening when the prince came and called out, Lettuce, Lettuce, let down your hair, she let the hair down. The prince climbed up, but instead of finding his dearest Lettuce on top, he found the sorceress, who gave him vicious and angry looks. What, no hello, nice to meet you? Aha! She exclaimed with contempt. You want to fetch your darling wife. Wait, when did she figure out they were married? When did they get married? Wait, does holding hands mean you're married? Oh my goodness. But the beautiful bird is no longer sitting in the nest, and she won't be singing any more. This sorceress must have read a copy of the book after banishing Lettuce. The cat had got her, and it will also scratch out your eyes. I think we may be taking this bird metaphor a little far. Lettuce is lost to you, and you will never see her again. The prince was beside himself with grief, and in his despair he jumped off the tower. Well, this story just got dark. He escaped with his life, but the thorns he fell into pierced his eyes. Gross. So he became blind. Now he strayed about in the forest, ate nothing but roots and berries, and did nothing but mourn and weep about the loss of his dearest wife. Thus he wandered for many years in misery. Eventually he made his way into the desolate land where Lettuce was leading a wretched existence with the twins, a boy and a girl, to whom she had given birth. Wait, when did that happen? When he heard a voice that he thought sounded familiar, he went straight towards it, and when he reached her, Lettuce recognized him. She embraced him and wept, and as two of her tears dropped into his eyes, they became clear, and he could see again. Then he escorted her back to his kingdom, where he was received with joy, and they lived happily and contentedly for a long time thereafter. But what about the twins? Did they just leave the twins in the desolate land? Oh, Grimm brothers, no? Hmm. Okay, fine. Let's sum up. A bad neighbor steals from his neighbor's garden and then pays with his baby. The woman who took said baby decides teenagers are hard and locks her in a tower. No judgment. All parents have been there. Then the teenager manages to meet a boy anyway. Yep, that tracks. Mom doesn't like the boy. Girl gets disowned after a teenage pregnancy, but they all live happily ever after. Yeah, I guess I can see why it stands the test of time. Still, now that I've read it, I have no idea what to read next. Wait, I remember. I have another request. Oh, now I am so happy. So please like, share, subscribe, and keep those requests coming. I only had one comment back about Patreon, so for now I will put it on the back burner. Next time, a lovely story called Old Ring Rink. Rink. Try and say that 3 times fast. Old rink. Right. Bye. That's your cue, cameraman. Turn off the camera.